Krishna. So we are reading from the chapter Further Considerations of Devotional Principles. Om Gana Tibidandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Un Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we're going to read about rendering service to the Lord. Actually, we read that section. So singing. In the Linga Purana, there's a statement about glorifying and singing about the Lord. It is said there, a Brahmin who is constantly engaged in singing the glories of the Lord is surely elevated to the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna appreciates this singing even more than the prayers offered by Lord Shiva. Oh, now here. Sankirtan. When a person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, forms, etc., his chanting is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan also refers to the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So most devotees don't pronounce that word properly. They say Sankirtan. It's Sankirtan. You hear the little bit of difference. Actually, Sankirtana. Anyway. So, in the Vishnu Dharma, there's a statement glorifying this process of congregational chanting. My dear king, this word, Krishna, is so auspicious that anyone who chants this holy name immediately gets rid of the resultant actions of sinful activities from many, many births. That is a fact. There's the following statement in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. A person who chants the holy name of Krishna once can counteract the resultant actions of more sinful activities than he is able to perform. Wow. A sinful man can perform many, many sinful activities, but he's unable to perform so many they cannot be wiped out by a single uttering of Krishna. In the 7th canto, 9th chapter, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Prahlad offers the following prayers to the Lord. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, if I can be elevated to the position of your servant, then it will be possible for me to hear about your activities. You are the supreme friend, the supreme worshipable deity. Your pastimes are transcendental. Simply by hearing of them, one can counteract all sinful activities. Therefore, I shall not care for all those sinful activities, because simply hearing about your pastimes, I shall get out of all the contamination of material attachment. There are many songs about the Lord's activities. For example, in the Brahma Sangita, sung by Lord Brahma, Narada Pancharatra, sung by Narada Muni, and Srimad Bhagavatam, sung by Shukadeva Goswami. If these songs are heard by any person, he can easily get out of the clutches of material contamination. There should be no difficulty in hearing these songs of God. They're coming down from many, many millions of years ago, and people are still taking advantage of them. So why at this time should one not take full advantage and thus become liberated? In the 1st canto, 5th chapter, verse 22 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni tells his disciple Vyasadeva, my dear Vyasa, you should know that persons who are engaged in executing austerities and penances, studying the Vedas, performing big sacrifices, chanting the hymns of the Vedas, speculating on transcendental knowledge, and performing charitable functions, have for all their auspicious activities simply to gain a place in the association of devotees and chant the glories of the Lord. It is indicated here that chanting about and glorifying the Lord is the ultimate activity of the living entity. So there's 2 words in Sanskrit. There's many words, of course, but 2 words in this regard. One is called sadhana and the other one is called sadhya. Sadhana means the practice. Sadhya means the goal. So, practically speaking, any activity, almost any activity that we do, I can't say any activity, but almost any activity we do, is not the goal. But the chanting is both the process and the goal. Because the chanting purifies the heart, and then when you chant, what do you get? More chanting. And when you go back to the spiritual world, you keep chanting. So if you're worried about 16 rounds, you're not going back to the spiritual world, because in the spiritual world you got to chant millions of rounds constantly. You never stop chanting Kirtaniyasa. And actually, we have to have so much faith in the holy names, especially about this thing about wiping out many, many sinful activities. Many of us, we try to employ other methods of purification. I mean, there are other methods, but we take shelter of materialistic methods of purification. For example, one may, in Fiji, of course, your favorite place, one may in Fiji, if they're bothered by ghosts, which are a manifestation of sinful activities, they go to the local Muslim witch doctor, and they have faith in that. Or, we've heard this many, many times before from devotees, that I've been cursed. Someone cursed me. And I said, chant Hare Krishna, and they said, it's not working. The point is, they don't have faith in the holy name. It is working, because when one chants the holy name, even Nam Abbas, accidentally, jokingly, chastisingly, or any which way, then one becomes free from all sorts of karma, including prarabdha karma. Remember when I talked about this? What are the different types of karma? Anyone know?
Prarabdha.
Yeah, and there's another. What is kuta? Is kuta, bija, prarabdha, aparabdha. What are the four things? Does anyone remember? What's a kuta?
Seed. Seed?
No. Bija means seed.
Kuta means manifestation of...
Oh, kuta means inclination. There's an inclination to do something. There's a bija, which is the seed. Papa bija. That doesn't mean your father who's a seed. You know, Papa bija. Papa, in this case, means sinful seed. And then after that, there's the parabdha karma, aparabdha. That means the karma that is not yet manifest. And then there's the parabdha. Give me an example of parabdha karma. Does anyone know? There's so many examples of parabdha karma in this room. The body.
Being born.
Yeah, well, I mean, the body is an example of parabdha karma. But of course, when one takes the Krishna consciousness, you get rid of the parabdha karma. So what, does that mean you get rid of the body? That might be nice. But anyway, so, no, it means that Krishna is personally taking care of his devotees at that particular juncture. So we have to have faith. I mean, that's why we shouldn't take so much stock in astrology. The only time I really take stock in astrology is when we're thinking about arranging someone's marriage. You know, because you can tell what star someone was born, whether someone's a Rakshasa by Ghana. They're actually, because you're supposed to get Rakshasas married to Rakshasas. That's true, some devotees have Rakshasa, Ghana. And you say, don't marry any other Ghana, you know, there's Rakshasas. So I pronounce you two Rakshasas, man and wife. You know, please, don't eat meat on Friday. So anyway, no, joking aside, that's the only time I really even think about it. So I have a little app in my phone. He said, what's your birthday? What's your birthday? Whoops. So you're 20% compatible. That's great. So get married. All right, so anyway, joking aside. So let's continue reading. Now the next one is japa. Oh, another meaning, another thing I wanted to mention is that the word sankirtan not only means congregational chanting, but in another context it means absorbed or complete chanting. You understand? That means complete, let's say, absorption in the holy names, concentration and meditation on the Lord's pastimes. That's Sankirtan too. So japa, chanting a mantra or hymn softly and slowly is called japa, and chanting the name loudly is called kirtan. For example, uttering the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Hare Hare, very softly, only from one's own hearing is called japa. Haridas Thakur chanted japa very loudly. Why is that? Because he wanted to liberate all the inanimate living entities. He had this discussion with Lord Chaitanya. How can the inanimate, that means the trees and everything else, become liberated? And Haridas Thakur answered by the loud chanting of the Lord's holy names. So chanting the same mantra loudly for being heard by all others is called kirtan. The Maha Mantra can be used for japa and kirtan also. When japa is practiced, it is for the personal benefit of the chanter. But when kirtan is performed, it is for the benefit of all others who may hear. I remember one time a devotee was walking, this happened several times, with Prabhupada, and just to impress Prabhupada, they were chanting their japa loudly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. You know, just trying to show Prabhupada, whoa, I'm really advanced in devotion. So Prabhupada said, stop that. In the Padma Purana, there's a statement, for any person who is chanting the holy name, either softly or loudly, the paths to liberation and even heavenly happiness are at once open. So much benefit for japa. Submission. In the Skanda Purana, there is a statement about submission unto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said there that those who are sober devotees can offer their submission to Krishna in the following 3 ways. 1, some praratana anatmaka, very feelingly offering prayers. 2, dainya dikha, humbly submitting oneself. Lala samayi, desiring some perfectional stage. So let me unpack that. So very feelingly offering prayers, maybe prayers of appreciation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, prayers of glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, prayers for the benefit of other people. So the second one, humbly submitting oneself, is just like saying, Krishna, I am your eternal servant, but somehow or other I have become lost in this material world. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishalay bhavam buddha. And Ladasamayi, to please take me weeping and weeping to your lotus feet. So this desiring some perfectional stage in spiritual life is not sense gratification. When one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in this position, either as a friend, servant, parent, or conjugal lover of Krishna. That is called lalasamayi, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. This lalasamayi stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Swarupa Siddhi. Swarupa means one's own perfect, Siddhi means perfection, one's own perfect form. When one I'll explain this, when the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord. Now there is a class of devotees who say that you should go to a bona fide, spiritual master. If your spiritual master is not telling you what your relationship is with the Lord, then you better find someone else. So that's based upon something that has been taught in the past that was actually bona fide, but not for us, called Siddha Pranali. And in the Jaiva Dharma by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you have this indication or explanation of Siddha Pranali. There's actually 2 devotees, there's a story in the Jaiva Dharma, Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, his uncle. Anyone here read the... yeah, you've read. Points. So well read. And they're talking to the Guru. And they're saying to the Guru, basically, I feel like a coward boy. And the Guru says, yes, you're a coward boy. And this is your position, this is your who you work under? And Vijay Kumar says, basically, I feel like a gopi. And the guru says, I'll talk to you separately. Because he doesn't want to talk in front of the coward boy. And so the guru gives him all these different ekadasha bhava. That means the 8 aspects of their personality. What they look like, what they dress like, who their associates are in the spiritual world. And so that was applicable for people on a very high stage of devotional service. But it is not applicable for us. Unfortunately, devotees get cheated very easily, or people get cheated very easily. They go to Radhakund, and they are asked by some Babaji that, has your guru told you who you are in the spiritual world? He said, no. He just told me to go on Sankirtan and to read Prabhupada's books and do deity worship and serve Prabhupada. And they said, how many years have you been in the Krishna conscious movement? And he said, well, 50. And you're still doing that Sankirtan business? I'm not. They don't say exactly like that. I'm sort of like making it a little humorous. And they say, look, I can tell you who you are in the spiritual world. Everything you always wanted to know, but you're afraid to ask your guru. And so then you go, wow. Yes. And you approach him, and he says, well, actually, you're a gopi. And you say, I knew it all along. Practically will never say, you're a cow. Because a devotee would say, oh, I reject you. But a real devotee, if they're even told they're blades of grass in Vrindavan and the gopis walk on them like Uddhava was praying for, they're happy. But everyone wants some sexy name or sexy relation, isn't it? You don't want it just like an ordinary type of thing. Like one time I was giving an initiation and the lady said, I want a sexy name. And I said, all right, you can have the name Bhumi the Cow. And she almost rejected me. Just for that. I didn't give her that name, but. So anyway, so people become attracted by that. And as Prabhupada said, if they're living in Radhakund and they're simply chanting and not doing any preaching, Prabhupada in his Vrindavan's bhajan says they're eating the mind's bananas. What that means? Eating the mind's banana. Banana means crazy. So anyway, just like I don't know if you say here in New Zealand, but if someone's crazy, you say he's bananas.
Yeah.
You have that expression?
In Fiji we used to say that.
Yeah, in Fiji, he's bananas. So Prabhupada used that expression. I advise you to read the Vrindavan Bhajan written by Srila Prabhupada, which really gets into the details of how to be Krishna conscious. And it's really a heavy poem written by Prabhupada that really slams the sahajas. One time I was reading it publicly, actually it was in Prabhupada's disappearance day in Vrindavan, and they asked me to stop. I was reading it in front of the whole assembly, it was in the Vrindavan temple, and the temple president said, that's enough, Maharaj. Don't want to say anything heavy like that. But it was Prabhupada's words. What do you want me to do? Don't blame me, blame Prabhupada for this. So anyway, this, in other words, how do we actually realize our spiritual relationship? First of all, you have to understand you're a servant. If you haven't understand that you're dasavan, remember I gave that word the other day?
Yeah.
That's the brahmachari training. Dasavan. We're thinking we're Bhagawan. Actually, I have one disciple named Bhagawan.
In
Nandi. He's a pujari. He's from South India. Bhagawan. Anyway. So if we're thinking we're Bhagawan, that means we're in Maya. Ishwaraham Aham Bhogi Siddhaham Bhagavan Sukhi. We're the controller, we're perfect, we're happy, and we know our spiritual relation. But we're dasavan. You have to realize that. Dasavan means full of service, or complete in service, or unlimited service. So that's how you have to understand that you're a servant first. And not only a servant of Krishna, but, as Lord Chaitanya says, Gopi Bharata Padakamala Dasa Dasa Dasanu Dasa, a servant of a servant of a servant of the Lord. If you don't think you're a servant of all the devotees, then you don't understand your original position, relationship to the Lord. Because the more you go up through the rasas, then the service attitude becomes more prominent. Like there's a story of Narada Muni, who was trying to cure the Lord's headache by getting the dust of the feet of Krishna's devotees. And basically, all the devotees refused except for the gopis. So that means they had the highest level of service. The other devotees were thinking, we don't want to commit offense, we don't want to go to hell. But the gopis were thinking, we don't care if we go to hell. We just want to please Krishna. So if you really want to go back to Godhead, you have that dasavan consciousness. Anyway, and so then when you have that, then it gets revealed to you who you are in the spiritual world. But it's not, see, you're not really thinking, like in this, the sahaja thing, you're thinking of what type of body I have. But that's not really the point. The point is service. First there's the attitude of service, then your spiritual body becomes manifest. It's not the opposite. The opposite is, first you think about your spiritual body, and then maybe your service comes. But it's actually service, and then you understand who you are. Anyway, so don't go to Radhakund, except if I'm there. I mean, not living there. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, devotees should not stay in Radhakund. He gave us strict instruction. He said, you keep it on your head, and you can stay at Govardhan. But don't stay at Radhakund, because it's extremely dangerous. Unless you have some preaching. I mean, we have a temple there, Radhakund, which was started by Swarup Damodar Goswami's Manipur temple. I mean, they're preaching there. But don't stay there. It's very dangerous. Prabhupada said, if you stay in Radhakund and you're not qualified, actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said this, then Radhakund becomes Naraka Kund for you. In other words, you go to hell. And I saw that.
Why is that, Guru Maharaj?
What?
Why is that?
Because one commits offenses to the Supreme Lord by, first of all, leaving Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, which happens with a lot of devotees, and secondly, by considering the material body to not, there's a subtle conception, projecting one's bodily conception upon the spiritual reality. It's actually a great offense. And it's just not the right thing. Even when I go to Radhakund, you go around, of course, I'm very careful dealing with the people there. I don't criticize anyone. And we just sprinkle some Radhakund water on our heads. We don't jump in and start swimming across. Like Prabhupada, he told the devotees, when they first went there, the devotees were actually having chicken fights in the Radhakund, whatever. And Prabhupada said, no, just sprinkle some water on your head. So one has to be very careful. So my attitude in Radhakund is, I never want to touch my feet to the Kund. And actually some of the great devotees who do live there follow the same procedure. When they take a bath, they actually put a lota and pour the water over themselves rather than putting the feet directly in the Kund. So, what's that?
What about when it's the Radhakund appearance day and like people?
The interesting thing is that's not Radhakund's appearance day. Radhakund appeared at a different time of the year. If you read the Acharya's books, and I forget the exact day they appeared, but actually the Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami say that particular day in Kartik is not the day that Radhakund appeared.
How about immersing beads
chanting beads.
I never heard about it. I mean, I've seen devotees do that, but it's never. I mean, devotees do all sorts of things. You know, so if you want to bathe in Radha Kund, and you want to take a full bath in Radha Kund, have a very strong devotee hold your feet. So your feet don't go in Radha Kund and just dip you like this, upside down. That's fine, you know.
Beads we should do.
I don't know about beads. I mean, I've never heard Prabhupada talk about it. There's no statement about dipping your beads in Radha Kund, although the Pandas will tell you to do that. I had one of my friends went to Radha Kund thinking he was very advanced, and he took shelter of one of the Babajis. Then he started committing offenses against that Babaji. He took shelter of another Babaji, thinking he was more advanced than that Babaji. I mean, the problem is humility. The ones thinking they're more advanced than they actually are. And then he gradually became a Buddhist because of his offenses. And then gradually he became a complete atheist, even worse than a Buddhist. So, I mean, that's the result of trying to jump up to a platform which you're not qualified for. Like Prabhupada said, big, big belly, big, big monkey, Ceylon jumping melancholy. What that means is that if you try to imitate Hanuman, you may have a big belly, like a monkey, but you'll simply fall flat on your face. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. In the Padma Purana, there's a statement of submission in feeling by the devotees praying to the Lord. My Lord, I know that the young girls have natural affection for young boys, and the young boys have natural affection for young girls. I am praying at your lotus feet that my mind may be attracted unto you in the same spontaneous way. The example is very appropriate. When a young boy or girl sees a member of the opposite sex, there's a natural attraction without the need for any introduction. Without any training, there's a natural attraction due to the sex impulse. This is a material example, but the devotee is praying that he may develop a similar spontaneous attachment for the Supreme Lord, free from any desire for profit and without any other cause. This natural attraction for the Lord is the perfectional stage of self-realization. In the same Padma Purana, there's the statement about submission in humbleness. It is stated there, my dear Lord, there is no sinful living entity who is more of a sinner than myself, nor is there a greater offender than myself. I am so greatly sinful and offensive that when I come to confess my sinful activities before you, I am ashamed. This is a natural position for a devotee. As far as the conditioned soul is concerned, there is no wonder that he has some sinful activities in his past life, and this should be admitted and confessed before the Lord. As soon as this is done, the Lord excuses the sincere devotee. So, in other words, when we go before the Lord, or we talk to the devotees, we should be honest about our situation, and even honest. Not that we have to go into detail about our past. Did you hear the day that I did this or that? You know, we don't have to play a movie. But, you know, just express our humility in this particular way. And attribute our coming to Krishna consciousness to the mercy of the Supreme Lord and his devotee. I mean, I know some devotees who say, I came to the Krishna consciousness because I was very advanced in my past life. I was a great yogi. And because of that, I'm here. And you're all very fortunate to have me here. I mean, that's implicit. They don't say that. But I've heard many devotees say that, and I just tell them, I said, no, it's only Prabhupada's mercy. A real devotee feels, I have no good qualities. A real devotee is thinking, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays in the Gopinath prayer, oh Gopinath, I'm a materialistic rascal. Please take this sinner weeping and weeping to your lotus feet. But if one attributes good qualities to themselves, that's a disqualification. Try to remember that. And the only reason, we should think, the only reason I'm here in Krishna consciousness is because of Prabhupada's mercy or my spiritual master's mercy. But that does not mean that one should take advantage of the Lord's causeless mercy and expect to be excused over and over again while he commits the same sinful activities. Such a mentality is only for shameless persons. Here it is clearly said, when I come to confess my sinful activities, I become ashamed. So, of course, Prabhupada is making reference here to the Catholic procedure of confession. That is also called Kunjara Sotra. Does anyone know what that means? Elephant bathing, yeah. That Prabhupada said an elephant goes in the water, cleans himself, and then rubs some dirt on himself when he gets out. Actually, there is a reason he does that. It's not that the elephant's in Maya. There's actually a practical reason why the elephant does it. It's not that he's just like a dirty pig, you know. It's good he does it. And I'm not going to tell you why. You can look it up on Google if you want. So, but anyway, the example is given, so it doesn't work if someone just confesses his sinful activities and then goes and does the same thing again. In the 1960s, there was a movie about a prostitute who, during 6 days a week, she was a prostitute. And on the seventh day, Sunday, she confessed. Actually, the name of the movie was Never on Sunday. Anyways, don't look at it. So we should not be like that prostitute, you know, all week long, and then we go to the temple on Sunday. So if a person is not ashamed of his sinful activities and continues to commit the same sinful activities with the knowledge that the Lord will excuse him, that is the most nonsensical proposition, Prabhupada says. Such an idea, of course, that's sitting on the strength of chanting. Such an idea is not accepted in any part of the Vedic literature. It is a fact that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes washed clean of all sinful activities from his past life. But that does not mean that after being washed off, one should again begin sinful activities and expect to be washed again. These are nonsensical propositions and not admitted in devotional service. Someone may think, for a whole week I may commit sinful activities, and for one day I will go to the temple or church and admit my sinful activities, so that I can, Prabhupada's saying the same thing I just said, that I can become washed off and again begin my sinning. This is most nonsensical and offensive, and is not acceptable to the author of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the Narada Pancharatra, there is a statement of submission accompanied by the desire for perfection. The devotee says, "My dear Lord, when shall that day come when you will ask me to fan your body, and according to your pleasure you will say, 'Just fan me in this way'?" The idea in this verse is that the devotee is desiring to personally fan the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means that he is desiring to become the personal associate of the Supreme Lord. Of course, any devotee in any capacity, either a servant, friend, or a conjugal lover, always has direct association with the Lord. But according to his different individual taste, a person desires just one of these relationships. Here the devotee is desiring to become a servant of the Lord and desires to fan the Lord, as does his internal energy, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. He also wishes that the personality of Godhead will be pleased to give him directions on how to fan. This submission with transcendental desire, or lalasamayi vigyapati, is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual realization. In the same Narada Pancharatra, there is another expression of submission, wherein the devotee says, "My dear Lord, O lotus-eyed one, when will that day come when on the bank of the Yamuna I shall become just like a madman and continue to chant your holy name while incessant tears flow from my eyes?" This is another perfectional stage. Lord Chaitanya also desired that a moment will appear unto me as 12 years of time, and the whole world will appear to me as vacant on account of not seeing you, my dear Lord. One should feelingly pray and become eager to render his particular type of service to the Lord. This is the teaching of all great devotees, especially Lord Chaitanya. In other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. One should learn this small technique, and he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in some particular type of service. Actually, he says, this is called lol yum, and such tears are the price for the highest perfection. If one develops this loyum, or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there is no material calculation for the value of this ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of God. The only price for such entrance is this loyum, lalasamai, or desire, and great eagerness. So, in the Nectar of Instruction, there's a problem with loyum. What is the problem? Prasascha, Janasandascha, Cha, Sadhvirabhakti, Vinashyati. There it says, loyum destroys devotional service. So how to reconcile this apparent contradiction? Yeah.
Spiritual
Hankering. It's not just greediness. Loyum means intense hankering, excessive eagerness. Because people think, I need this, I need this. And that destroys, especially when you go on the internet and you see some particular item that appears very attractive. You think, I need this, I have to have it. Because the more you contemplate something, according to Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, what happens?
attachment.
Jayato Vishayat Purusan. You know that verse? Sangha station Pujayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Kroda Pujayate. Kroda Bhavati Samaha Samaha Spriti Brahmaha. Spriti Brahmashad Nashtabudi and Nashtabudi Vinashyati. When you contemplate, so how to avoid the material loyum? Don't contemplate sense objects. Immediately, if a sense object comes in your purview, you go, Hare Krishna! I remember in the early days of the movement, brahmacharis would walk by a lady, go, Hare Krishna!
Must have shocked.
What?
Must have shocked that lady. Yeah. Shocked.
No, they were used to it. The brahmacharis were always like that.
I mean,
Actually, attraction and repulsion for sense objects is the same thing. Just like that story Prabhupada told, actually told several stories, about the two sannyasis. They were walking down the road and they had to cross a river, and then one of them helped a lady across the river. And they're walking. Finally, after about 25 kilometers, the second sannyasi, who didn't help the lady across the river, said, I have to tell you something. I'm really disturbed. And the first sannyasi said, why are you really disturbed? And the second sannyasi said, because you carried that lady across the river. And the first sannyasi said, yes, but you carried her 25 kilometers. And there was another story that Prabhupada told. There was once a man who was living next to a lady who was a prostitute. And so he had his computer out. No, Prabhupada didn't talk about computers. He was taking notes. This customer, that customer, that customer. So anyway, he went to hell after that lifetime, and she went back to Godhead. So the point is, when you contemplate something, get attached, even in a negative way. So what do we do about that? How do you avoid contemplating? Do you just go Hare Krishna each time? Like for me, each time a Tesla goes by, Hare Krishna. And I told him to get a Tesla, right? So no, you have to contemplate Krishna. And contemplate Krishna's pastimes and hear about it. So then you get, same thing, you get attached. And you get this longing or hankering. So our system is not simply just like to look the other way, but to actually look towards Krishna. And when you look towards Krishna, then what is it? Rasa Vajram Rasa Upjasa Anandrisvani. You have a higher taste, and these things don't bother you. So that's our volume, intense anger. And we should be crying for Krishna when we chant Hare Krishna. It's not just like inattentive chanting, just like, let me get this japa done. Oh, 16 rounds. Let me drive a car while I chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So they got all sorts of like counter things now. Like they used to have these sheep counters, clickers. Click, click. Now it's they just put a little thing on the finger, go tee tee tee. So they can drive their car nicely and eat prasadam at the same time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Get a waterproof, take a shower. Hare Krishna. Isn't it? It's not our process. Our process is attentive chanting. We should be crying. If you're crying, you won't be able to drive at the same time. Isn't it? If you're crying intensely, how can you drive? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna save me. Sometimes I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I'm crying, chanting intensely because of the driver, Like I told this story before that when I first joined the movement, traveling with a sannyasi who was a horrible driver, and he said, "This is the way I'm instructing you how to chant pure japa." So, anyway, maybe we'll just read the next section. Reciting notable prayers. According to great learned scholars, the whole Bhagavad Gita contains many authorized prayers, especially in the 11th chapter, where Arjuna prays to the universal form of the Lord. Similarly, in the Gautamiya Tantra, all the verses are called prayers. Again, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are hundreds of prayers to the Lord. So a devotee should select some of these prayers for his recitation. In the Skanda Purana, the glories of these prayers are stated as follows. Devotees whose tongues are decorated always with prayers to Lord Krishna are always given respect even by the great saintly persons, the sages, and such devotees are actually worshipable by the demigods. Those who are less intelligent want to worship different demigods for some material gain rather than worshiping Krishna. But here it is stated that a devotee who is always engaged in offering prayers to the Lord is worshipable even by the demigods themselves. The pure devotees have nothing to ask from any demigod. Rather, the demigods are anxious to offer prayers to the pure devotees. In the Nrsinga Purana is stated, any person who comes before the deity of Lord Krishna begins to chant different prayers is immediately relieved from all the reactions of sinful activities and becomes eligible without any doubt to enter into the Vaikuntha Loka. Okay. So, any questions or comments? Or arguments? Yes?
The statement that you came across a number of times that a moment feels like 12 years of separation or more.
Yeah.
Like 12 years doesn't seem like why 12 years in particular?
Well, actually, the Sanskrit is basically many yugas for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like if Prabhupada translates it, sometimes it's 12 years, but it's yugayitam nimishena chakshusha pravashayitam. Like a nimishya is like a portion of a second. Of separation from Krishna feels like eternity. I mean, it's a different way of saying eternity. So Prabhupada, because most of us can't relate to eternity with our little brains, so Prabhupada says 12 years or more. And that, to most of us, that's an eternity. Most of us nowadays, because our brains are so fried using the internet, and we all have ADD, ADHD, that our span of attention is like 5 seconds or less. So if we're meant to sit for Bhagavatam class, it's like eternity. So in the future you'll say, oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, it's like sitting through Bhagavatam class.
12 minutes.
12 minutes, 12 seconds. But, Prabhupada was just using, a year. He just picked a year example. But actually it's like an eternity. Krishna feeling your separation. I mean, everything's vacant. Yugayitam nimishena. Chakshusha pravashayana. Shunya. It's void. The whole world, probably uses the word vacant, but actually the void. Void means nothing. There's no purpose, no reason. It's just horrible. Shunyayitam. Jagat sarvam, the whole universe. Jagat sarvam, sarvam means the whole universe. Govinda, feeling a separation from Govinda. And one should be feeling like that Krishna, I'm chanting and I'm disconnected from you. I want to be with you. And there's no purpose of anything other than to serve you and be with you. Anyway, so that's why Prabhupada says 12 years, but the Sanskrit doesn't say 12 years. Yugayitam nimishena. So, any other questions? Yes?
Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, most of the prayers are ashtakams. What is the significance of 8?
8 is a very auspicious number. Just that it's an auspicious number. There's 8 gopis, 8 principal gopis, and then there's 108, 16,108. So 8 is good. Ashtaka. Astasiddhis. There's also Astasiddhis, 8-fold powers that yogis have. So, Ashtakaliya Leela. That means the 8 different times of the day of Krishna's Leela. Also there's there's Lord Chaitanya's Ashtakaliya Leela. Lord Chaitanya has 8 times of the day too, in which he enacts different pastimes. It's considered a very auspicious number. Talking about, I guess, numerology. 8 is auspicious. Actually, in the West we have certain numbers that are inauspicious, like 13. But actually, it's not mentioned in India at all that 13 is inauspicious. So sometimes you go to a hotel and the 13th floor is missing. You ever see that?
Yeah.
It jumps from 12 to 14. Actually, you're on the 13th floor, but they won't tell you. So, any other questions or comments? Yes, Nanda Braj. Bhakti Vinod Thakur mentions. Yeah.
How is that related to actual the Pranali mantra?
Pranali mantra?
How is that related to actual Pranali mantra?
Pranali mantra?
No, the Siddha Pranali.
Siddha Pranali is the process by which you, let me talk more about that, is which the Guru will tell you when you reveal your mind to the Guru. He'll tell you who you are in the spiritual. You just say, I have a natural attraction for, let's say, cooking for Krishna. And the Guru will say, therefore, you are such and such and such and such. This is your name. This is what you do. That's Siddha Pranali. And that is a bona fide process, but it's not bona fide now, because Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not do that. Nor, of course, did Prabhupada or any of the followers of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But in the past, dealing with people who were extremely elevated, it was a bona fide process. Otherwise, why would Bhakti Vinod Thakur write about it in the Jaiva Dharma? But Bhakti Vinod Thakur was talking about very elevated persons, like Brajanath, for example, was a very expert person in Nyaya. There's a whole story about Brajanath in the Jaiva Dharma. And actually, it's an interesting story. I'll just tell it real quickly. That, first of all, Brajanath was not interested in Krishna consciousness in the beginning. But what happened, he was in Navadvip. He was living in Navadvip. So that means he's a liberated soul anyway. So he wasn't interested, but he was expert in Nyaya. Nyaya means like logic and argumentation. And there was another person, I forget his name right now, who was very envious of Brajanath because he was also a person who was interested in Nyaya, but he kept getting defeated by Brajanath. Because in Bengal, you had all these different philosophical challenges, people with this Digvijayas, people who would conquer other people by argumentation. And so this particular individual, Yayaka Chudamani was his name. Actually, it's interesting, I remember it. in order to get rid of Brajanath, he started worshipping a manifestation of the goddess Kali. And so he wanted to kill Brajanath, basically. So he went to a cemetery, and you remember this story? And he was doing like a whole month of austerity, lying down in the cemetery. Oh, goddess, please get rid of Brajanath. Please get rid of him. Please get rid of him. And so, after a month, there was a full moon, and he says, please, please, goddess, please get rid of him. And there was thunder and lightning, and he heard a voice, don't worry, Brajanath will no longer be teaching Nyaya. And, he got blessed by the goddess. And so he went, Jai, Haribol. No, Haribol. But anyway, he went Jai. And then he went back home, having faith in what the goddess had said. So then what happened with Brajanath in the meantime, it's not that he got killed or anything like that, is that one of his students approached him and he said, Brajanath, have you ever heard about this great logician that lived some time ago? His name was Nimai Pandit, and he could defeat anybody. So then Brajanath became interested in reading about the Nyaya, or the philosophy of Nimai Pandit. So he was always asking, what about this Nimai Pandit? What about this Nimai Pandit? And he was thinking, oh, Nimai Pandit, I wish I was alive. I was there when you were there. Oh. So the whole time he was thinking, Nimai Pandit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he went home, and he said to his grandmother, who was preparing some prasadam for him, he said, have you ever heard of Nimai Pandit? And his grandmother said, oh yes, he'd love to eat shak, spinach. And, basically I prepared the same shak for you today. So she gave him this shak, spinach, and he was thinking, oh, this is the shak of Nimai Pandit, Nimai Pandit. So after a while, by chanting Nimai Pandit and thinking about Lord Chaitanya, he gave up everything about Nyaya and then became a devotee. And that's the story. And his uncle too, Vijay Kumar, was already a devotee. Vijay Kumar came to visit him, and he was shocked that Brajanath had become a devotee. Remember? He said, you're also interested in devotional service in Lord Chaitanya? How did that happen? Simply by being interested for the wrong reason in Nimai Pandit, he became a great devotee. So that's an interesting story. So anyway, that was the basis of the story where Brajanath and his uncle Vijay Kumar approached their gurus, actually, they had different gurus, and got instructions on their Siddha Deha, their eternal spiritual body. But as far as understanding our eternal spiritual body, you have to be on a very high platform of devotional service. Extremely high platform of devotional service. That comes, what you were talking about, the different platforms of devotional service, that comes basically when you're on bhava. Bhava means you're experiencing certain emotions like vibhava. I'm not going to get into it. It's a whole talk about later in the Nectar of Devotion. Anubhava, vibhava, sanctuary bhava, sthayi bhava. And you're pretty much free from anarthas, unwanted things. And you're nishta, you're steady in devotional service 24/7. And a shakti, you actually have pulled your mind away from the material world and you're completely focused on Krishna. So that's a very high stage. If you're still interested in anything in the material world, even a mobile phone, you're not ready. If you're still admiring someone's latest mobile phone, forget it. Okay, that's Siddha Pranali. And it's not a process for us for, let's say, someone who's on a high platform, yeah, sure. For us, it's revealed gradually who we are in the spiritual world as we serve. First comes the service, then comes the revelation. Prabhupada said, deserve, then desire. Okay, we have to end now. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Sri Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.